Thank you for joining Jennifer Schaus and Associates in our 2019 Webinar Wednesday series. We are coming to you live from downtown Washington, D.C. Our webinars are every Wednesday, and you can find the upcoming schedule on our website. Past webinars and all recordings are also on our website and our YouTube channel, along with over 160 other recordings on federal contracting topics. All are complimentary. If you have questions for our speaker today, you can email her with the contact information you'll see on the last slide. Right, just a little bit about us. We are a Washington, D.C. based firm and provide services for federal contractors. This ranges from market analysis reports to proposal writing, also post-award compliance. More information is on our website, so please visit us there. This is an upcoming event that you can find more information here on our website. And we do offer advertising, so you can email me if you would like more information on that. And our webinar today is sponsored by AccuTrack, and here's a short message from them.
AccuTrack Consulting and Accounting Services is an 8A WOSB CPA firm committed to supporting entities sustain growth in government contracting. Our outstanding DCAA accounting solutions reduce audit risk, improve cash flows, and give you peace of mind. Contact us today to learn how we can enhance your DCAA accounting efforts.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Our speaker today is Anna Yerman, and she's going to be covering market research resources for federal contractors. Thank you for joining us today, Anna, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mallory, and welcome everybody. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Let's dive right into it. What I often get is a question of why do I have to do market research? Or more often, it's a company that comes in a little bit overwhelmed and bewildered, saying somebody told me to do my homework, whether it was a government official or a potential partner or a prime contractor that you want to be a sub to. They said, do your homework, and I don't know what that means. So let's unpack that today. Let's talk about all the different things you should be looking for and how that informs and aligns with your business decisions. First, you want to do your market research to make sure that you don't waste anybody's time. The worst thing you could do for your business is come to a conversation with a potential customer unprepared. Now, by customer, I mean, of course, a federal or state and local agency, but also a potential teaming partner. It could be a prime contractor that you want to be a sub to. They are a partner, but they're also a customer because you are trying to get them to pick you. So you want to be prepared by knowing your industry, by knowing your customer, and what does that mean? And we'll talk about that in more detail. And you'll also want to know how and explain to them how your particular product or your service fits in with what they're trying to do and makes their life easier or better so that they would choose you among a field of your competitors. The second reason you want to do market research is to define your niche. I talk to many companies that are professional services or information technology or let's say IT hardware services, but that's really difficult. That's a lot of noise. But if you tell me you specialize in providing cybersecurity service, or even better, what kind of cybersecurity? Maybe it's intrusion detection. That helps your customer paint a better picture, and it sets you apart from every competitor that is using the same generic keywords that mean absolutely nothing. Also, when you define your service or product offering narrowly, you're able to really do a deeper dive on your customers that are buying that specific thing, so that all the other noise falls away. You don't care about all the agencies that don't buy what you sell because you want to focus on the few that do. It doesn't matter if that total target market size is smaller. You're much better equipped to pursue it and to win work there. And that leads me to the third point. You don't have a lot of resources. And by resources, of course, I mean marketing dollars, but it's also your time. And it's also all the cycles you waste in writing proposals to opportunities you don't understand, or pursuing procurements that are not exactly a good fit for you. Whereas you could focus on the ones that are, with the customers that you could make a difference for, that fit your business objective in the short as well as the long term, ultimately leading to invest your money rather than spreading it thinly and widely and hoping that something sticks. So next page. So let's talk about who you're doing research on. First, it's your target customers, which are your agencies as well as your teaming partners. What are you looking for is information on what you're buying, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you also want to research your competitors. What are the other companies that are either your direct or indirect competitors? How are your customers currently meeting their needs? And how can you do it better? Because frankly, if you can't do better than what they have right now, why are you even trying? You'll also want to understand the drivers in the market as well as in the government. It's really important to understand the political, policy, and regulatory drivers that change the priorities for your customers, that change the timeline, that change the budget. For example, things that come up that are out of your control and out of your customer's control, like a continuing resolution or like the shutdown, that could affect the bottom line of companies, and it severely hurts, at least in the short term. And what do you know about that and how you could mitigate that, both in pursuing specific opportunities, but also in guiding your company through it in the long term and addressing the market in a systematic, holistic, sustainable kind of way. So next slide, please. What are we going to research? First, next slide. Forgot there was a build there. What are you researching? What we'll talk about in the rest of this webinar, we'll focus on defining kind of 3 sets of expectations. You need to look at the past, which helps you define what your market is, who your customers are, and again, make to drive your focus and to define your niche so that you're focusing on going future on the opportunities that truly make sense. Government agencies tend to be pretty repeatable and predictable buyers. So if you're trying to figure out who is going to buy something in the future, the best way to define that is by looking to see who bought similar things in the past, because likely they will be recompeting similar projects again and again on a defined schedule. You'll also want to look at what is currently happening. That's the immediate needs. That's the snapshot that we often go to when we're trying to figure out if there's a federal market. Most companies start out by looking at FBO or FedBizOps, seeing that there's a lot of opportunities that they could do, and just going down the rabbit hole and starting bidding on everything they can without knowing the history. This is also where you get easily distracted by all the squirrels that are not particularly in your niche, but if only I could have this resource, I could bid that too, or I could team with this company and do it because they bring something to the table, even if you don't, which is a waste of your time. But you need to know what's currently happening, even though it's not indicative of the market, because you cannot have an informed conversation with a potential customer if you are not aware of what their immediate needs are. The worst thing you can do for yourself is go into a meeting and ask them, so are you buying any any servers, and they have an RFP on the street for servers right now. You pretty much lose the rest of that meeting, if not that customer. And the other thing that we'll need to look at and companies dismiss that sometimes, but it's the long term, it's the future opportunities, but that's where you need to focus your time the most. So using what you have researched about the past procurements, about the current landscape, will help inform your short, medium, and long-term strategy for business development. I'm talking about 24 months out, 36 months out. That helps you really shape those opportunities, market to those potential customers in a systematic and smart and creative way, so that when those proposals or when those opportunities go from the future to current state, you are able to bid and do your best and make the best impression on your customers, and really hone that pipeline to have your emphasis on the strategic opportunities instead of chasing all those squirrels that are kind of shots in the dark. Next slide. So here are some tools, and there are more, but these are the essential tools in your toolbox to look at the past opportunities. The first one is usaspending.gov. It is the most user-friendly way to search for federal obligations. Anytime a federal agency does something about a contract, it is an award, it is a payment, it is a deobligation, it could also be a change in scope that has nothing to do with money. For example, they extended a deadline by 3 months. They will publish that data in a database, and USA Spending is the easiest way for us to search that. Now, USA Spending has a bunch of dashboards that are very generic and very top level and don't provide much depth. But if you go to that site, you click on Advanced Search, and then on the left, you navigate to a couple of buttons where you narrow that down by, and I recommend searching by keywords, maybe by agency if you know where the work is, and maybe by a socioeconomic set aside, but I don't recommend starting that way. But you could very quickly get some analysis. Now, once you do the search, at the top left, there will be a blue button that says download. You'll download those results and you'll get 4 files. 2 of them will say assistance, prime and subcontracts, or assistance, prime and sub awards. Just ignore those. Those are for grants. And then there will be contracts, prime and sub awards. The contracts, prime awards is the worksheet that you want to focus on. That's a spreadsheet that will come up. It has over 200 columns of information that will be, some of it will be irrelevant or useless or blank. Some of it will be really relevant, and some of it just put on the back burner and save it for later. It has information on the funding agency, the amount of money spent, the type of contract, the type of pricing, the socioeconomic status of the winner, and also the winner's name, DUNS number. So you could do additional research. It has your NAICS and PC codes and a whole bunch of data. That enables you to very quickly build some pivot tables and start market research analysis in just a couple of minutes. You'll also be able to refer back to that information once you hone in a little bit better on your customer, because once you know that you're pursuing opportunities, let's say within the Department of Health and Human Services, well, then you'll want to know which are the offices within HHS that spend the most money. Who are the incumbents there that you may want to team with or compete against, and what do you know about them? What are the contract vehicles that they use, and do you have access to them by yourself or through partners? So the information gains more and more value the more you spend time on it, the more you focus on it. The next source you'll see is FPDS. Now, I mentioned earlier that USA Spending draws from a database of obligations. FPDS is actually the mothership, that is the database. But it is old, it is not pretty, and it is not easy to search. The best thing I recommend FPDS for is their standard reports. If you create a login in that system, and it's really easy, cookie-based login, you could click on the standard reports, and then there will be categories across the top, who, what, where, how. You'll see some reports that agencies use for their own reporting. For example, the Small Business Goal Line report that federal departments use for their annual SBA submissions. That's where the report cards come from. Those are interesting to look at. They could be informative. You could drill down and get some information. And notice the nerd emoji on the right, the ad hoc reports. Those are not for the faint of heart. Those are very detailed. There's a manual. If you really want me to teach you how to do it, send me a note on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to walk you through it. But initially, don't worry about it. Right? If you're trying to determine whether or not GSA schedules are right, or my favorite, if you're trying to determine whether or not your potential partner who said, I have a GSA schedule and lots of customers, whether they're telling you the truth, GSA schedules query is a quick way to find that out. There are a couple of reports. You'll see a column on the top left a navigation to reports. And it's, again, it's not pretty, it's not a recent site, but there are some very quick, not customized, but preset reports you could create by vendor, by schedule, and by time, so by quarter. There's also a more updated site. It's in beta. It's the d2d.gsa.gov/ all those other things. You could build some more advanced reports with that. If, again, the nerd icon emoji there is for a reason. And additionally, there are a number of reports done by third parties, whether it's the Government Accountability Office, by newspapers that cover or trade associations that cover the government sector. For example, in the IT industry, there's the Government Computer News, the whole 1105 media group that talks about common federal challenges and strategies and plans. And also, agencies publish their own strategic plans. They report on their performance. Again, in IT, there is itdashboard.gov that tracks major agency IT investments for compliance with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So you'll want to look at that. Next slide. Use the past information to narrow down what it is that you're looking at currently to prevent yourself from getting distracted, because there's a lot of information that you will need very tactically, very quickly when you're preparing to bid on something. Make sure that whatever it is you're preparing to bid on, you really vetted well, so that you're presenting your best to the potential customer, so that you are not wasting your cycles or burning out your employees trying to do something over a weekend that you know is doomed to fail. Nobody likes to fail for no reason. So, putting on my lawyer hat for a second, make sure that you look at acquisition.gov, add the federal acquisition regulation, add the that's the FAR, and the federal FAR supplements that apply to your agency. Sometimes you'll be able to print those chapters and give them to your customers as guidance for how to do procurements, like simplified acquisitions process, if you need to. FBO or FedBizOps, that's where current opportunities live that are in the open market. More importantly than opportunities, there's contact information for procurement folks. So if you're trying to figure out how to reach somebody in the, I'm just gonna pick on somebody, the Army TACOM, Tank and Armaments Command, and you have no idea where to start, look at the current opportunities coming out of that office, but also on FBO, do an advanced search for, and you'll want to hit, when you go to advanced search, click on the button that says both active and archive. So say active, then archive, then both, click on that both. You'll get current as well as past procurements. Now, past procurements you can't do anything about other than figure out what that agency bought in the last year. And also at the end of every single notice is somebody's contact information. Call them, email them. If they're in the DC area, call them early in the morning, because people here like to get in before 9. So 7:30, 8 o'clock call, see if they'll answer better. Or email. Email creates a record as well that you could refer to. If those folks are not responding you directly, feel free to resend that email and copy that agency's OSDBU or OSBP. That's the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization for civilian agency, or Office of Small Business Programs for DoD. They're the small business advocates, and you'll want to get their help if you're having difficulty reaching somebody. If you're trying to sell a product or service that could be something that is bought under the simplified acquisition threshold of $250,000, then look at the reverse auction sites, FedBid and FedConnect, that are private outsourced vendors that aggregate low bids, essentially. As non-government entities, they are not going to compare proposals on qualitative information. They're only going to accept proposals that meet the qualifications detailed, and then they'll present the lowest price to the customer. That is for commodity products as well as services. The best way to figure out if that's a good use of time for you, create a login, search on some things that they're buying, and see if your customers are using it to buy products and services that you care about. A GSA tool, actually two tools that are on here, calc.gsa.gov, that's the GSA rates. Those are labor rates for service contracts for any catalog in the GSA's catalogs, including their GWACs as well as their schedules. You could search by specific keywords. You could narrow it down on the right-hand side by experience and education levels, whether or not it's a small business, whether or not it's on-prem. Use that as a benchmark. GSA labor rates do not have a volume discount, but other than that, they are labor fully loaded or wrap rates for common labor categories that GSA uses. And when you do get a list of rates based on your search, at the bottom of the page, if you scroll down, will be the reference contracts that these rates came from. So it'll have the company's GSA schedule, the company's contract, where that rate is drawn on. So you get a very good idea of your competitors or your potential teammates. Again, it's all a big circle of all your data points feeding into each other. GSA eLibrary is how you find GSA schedules. You could search by a particular schedule and SIN number, or you could search by a particular vendor, and you could find their whole GSA schedule, and there is an actual a link where you could download their contract and look at all of their library of rates. Again, use it as competitive intelligence, absolutely. And to determine if you were to get a GSA schedule, what benchmark you need to meet in order to be competitive. I mentioned IT dashboard in the previous slide. That's the link. That's for major IT investments, not by contract, but rather by their business case as submitted to Congress. For those paying attention, for the nerds in the room, that's the Exhibit 300 and Exhibit 53 submissions. Right? And as a last resort, or as kind of something inventive, Google specific search terms, Google contract numbers, Google somebody's phone number or email address, and you'll be surprised as to what comes up. If you know that your contracting officer is, let's say, Anna Ehrman, and you know my email address, Google my email address, and you may get a particular event that I spoke at and had slide decks. You may get a mailing list that I showed up on, or a list of potential speakers. That gets you a little bit into the mind of the people that you're trying to speak with as well. Wouldn't you love to know where your potential contacts, where your buyers are going to get their information, their education, what groups they belong to, what their interests are? There's a lot of information out there, and if you are not finding it, your competitors are. So do everything you can to at least get even, if not set yourself ahead of them. Next slide, please. All right, so future state. What do you need to know for your long-term business strategy? Again, procurement forecast for agencies from acquisition.gov, the same place where you could find the FAR. Procurement forecasts are a mixed bag. Some agencies like Homeland Security are live real-time updates. Some agencies are not. Some agencies are very spotty, but frankly, that's the best that they can do, and that's the best that anybody has. And even if they're directionally correct, at least you know what are some big things that the agency has coming up. And if there's contact information there, then you know who are the people whose part of their job description is to make sure that thing happens. So start with there, inform your future decisions, realize that those deadlines are not set in stone. In fact, some of them slip to the right. That means they are delayed. I don't think anything happens sooner than what's in the procurement forecast. That's just not how a federal government works. Look at bid and protest decisions. If you're interested in legal reasons that could feed future policy and future laws. If you have time and interest, look at what your competitors are putting out there. Now, that could be their white papers, it could be their websites, it could be a custom conference or outreach event that they're putting on. But also, if you're at events and industry conferences, gather up those capability statements and see if there's some keywords that you could inform your own marketing strategy as well. And truly, for the not the faint of heart, you could look at the congressional reports and department budgets, the congressional reports and hearings from committees that oversee the appropriations and allocations of money for the departments that you care about. That's how executive branch strategy gets set. So with that, thank you, Mallory. I'll leave it in your hands.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing your knowledge and insight today. Today's presentation has been recorded and can be found on our website or YouTube channel within about 48 hours. If you have questions about today's topic, you can contact Anna at the phone number or email shown on your screen. And thank you, everybody. This concludes the webinar.